rather than investing a bunch of money into data integration and all that kind of stuff to bring in more of that context, right? So I think it gives you that starting point. And over time, what you want to do is begin to bring in those legacy data sources into Flex. Begin to bring it into a single pane of glass so that your agents aren't having to bounce back and forth between windows and stuff like that. Yeah. And a lot of times sometimes that can be done quickly. Sometimes, I think we heard yesterday, you've got it in Excel, you got it in an Excel document back in the, one of your folders, right? And you're trying to sell somebody, a bicycle and some sneakers instead of the boxing gloves they want, right? It's a similar kind of journey. And that's where I think, things like Segment are going to help, because in the same way that Segment can help give context to how you're advertising and marketing to customers, it can be used to bring context to the way your agents are interacting with customers through Flex.
Right. So I'm just going to add a little color to that. And because you guys said some really important things. So one is, I think the original question Chris wanted to thought about changing and bringing it into legacy systems and how that works. So to me, it's a balance. It's a balancing act, because it goes back to that, what is that minimum viable product that we can put out? Not and valuable, not viable, right? And the value is important. So if you throw too much value to a team that isn't used to working that way and hasn't been working that way, and they don't have the moment to get up to speed and to get used to the new way of working, you can actually overload them and overwhelm them. And then your product that is amazing, that people worked really hard to build and they thought it was going to bring all this value, isn't bringing that value. So there's that color to it, and making sure we balance that. But then there's still trying to give them something that helps them have a better, agent experience in life to give to the customer. That's a better experience. So to me, when you're looking at those things and the releases and the phases, it's what can you introduce at the right time to not upset that apple cart and then create chaos in the process, even though it's going to do a lot of good, right? Because we don't want that good to have the wrong lens on it once it gets rolled out. So that's my take on it, and I'm just going to put that out right there. Anything you guys want to add?
I think that's good. Yeah, I think it's about phasing it out there. It's about making sure that you can, and depending on, for large enterprises, depending on how much stakeholder buy-in, how much of the journey you have to bring your colleagues in on. Oftentimes people will ask us, well, like when I would work with our marketing agency, they want to do, inbound lead targeting. What's the job title of the people that are your clients or that are buying Terazo services as a Twilio Flex integrator, cloud contact center integrator? I say whoever is charged with in the enterprise, right? So it could be anybody, but oftentimes that person driving innovation in the enterprise is like a salmon swimming upstream. They're fighting entrenched views, they're fighting politics, whatever it is now. Maybe they're lucky and everybody's all on the same page, and that's awesome. But
which is very rare.
Always a story along that value, that value there, I think it's important. I don't know, we lost Mike there, but
we did lose Mike, and I totally wanted to keep Mike in here before we bring Pete in, because I wanted to talk a little bit Flex, because we've touched on, and I think it's really, here he's back.
He's back.
Okay, so I know in that I think we've covered a little bit about Flex. Just kind of want to reach out to the audience, guys. If you want to know more, please make sure you're asking your questions and we can cover it. But I think this is a good segue, because you started talking about that context, Mike. And I think that's where, if we bring Pete in, is a really great segue to start talking a little bit about data. We appreciate Chris for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to kick you out. If you want to come back later, feel free. So we're going to go ahead and invite Pete in. So thanks, Chris.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, so coming up next, we have Pete. Maybe did I not invite him?
Oh, he's on his way in. He's got to go through the gate.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, do you want to kind of set it up around data, Mike, and explain to us why is data important in the Twilio ecosystem? Not just about Flex, but the overarching Twilio services and ecosystem.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, everything that Twilio provides is a set of tools for that customer engagement experience, right? And
Right.
when you're looking at optimizing that engagement experience with customers, your data is what's going to drive that decision making, right?
Right.
Being able to look and see where people are dropping off in your IVR, being able to see how long agents are taking to fulfill customer requests, being able to pull in contextual information about a customer's previous experience and how that might inform their current experience. So that the agent is able to, there's feedback here.
We are getting some feedback.
Not for me. It may
Yeah.
be our-
Are you
There-
you have a headset or something?
may-
Are you have a headset or something?
We may have to kick you out, Pete, and have you try again.
All right, so we booted
Okay,
him
well-
until he finds his headset. Check underneath your desk, Pete. Your puppy may have grabbed your headset.
Keep going. This is good. I have other follow-up questions. Keep going.
Yeah, so providing that contextual information for the agent so that they can be aware that maybe that customer's called 3 times already in that IVR, and they just haven't gotten what they wanted. And so that's the kind of stuff that I think the data can inform you in. One, in that customer experience, and also I think around the experimenting with how many messages are coming in from a particular channel, what portions of an IVR are people using. If you're using natural language inside of your IVR, where people are actually talking to a computer and the computer interacting back, where are the frustration levels?
Right.
Where are people getting aggravated, with this thing? The only way you'll get any of that insight is through data and collecting that data and analyzing that data.
Yeah, and then that data can also help, to your point, algorithms, AI, machine learning, information, behaviors, targets, functionality. How hard is it in taking that data and consuming it in Flex or other Twilio applications and building those algorithms and AI in order to have better task routing, et cetera, for calls?
Yeah, so I think the simplest approach is to leverage Flex Insights. And Flex Insights, there's no machine learning or AI behind it, but it is a good tool for being able to analyze your context, like in the usual sense, right? I can look up my data, I can slice and dice it.
Yep.
Well, then, because everything is built on APIs, and again, when we say it's built on top of Twilio, we mean, hey, it's got all the power of the Twilio APIs underneath. All of your data can be exported out into wherever you want to put it, into a warehouse, right? Where you can perform your own machine learning and other algorithms. One of the things that this signal that I'm very intrigued about was, I think towards the end of the visionary talk, they talked about a partnership with the Google CCAI tools, right? And I think it's pretty exciting to see what type of insights can come when you combine the data you're collecting with Twilio with the machine learning and AI algorithms that Google brings to the table. And we're talking beyond just the natural language processing that tools that machine learning brings, but also being able to flag calls for compliance reasons, being able to flag a call or be proactive in how you are working with a customer because of maybe some things that they said. Maybe they threatened a lawsuit. Maybe they were extremely happy, right? You just want to of stuff. And then you also have the kinds of things just, around being able to segment customers, having here are the conversations that I have. Okay, I've had these conversations in the last 6 months. I want a machine to look at these conversations and break them up into 4 different groups, right? And what are the commonalities among those groups, and being able to do some cohort type of analysis across that. And that's all stuff that, computers can do with unsupervised learning, right?
Right. Agreed. That's awesome. Very good stuff. Okay, so I think we're just gonna have to kind of segue into data no matter what. Data is a really critical part of anything and everything that we do, no matter what we do. How hard is it to integrate with custom databases or on-prem databases or cloud databases that are obviously connecting to CRMs? And I do want to talk about that separately, is one way that we can do it and how that works. But what if I'm a customer and I have a lot of different custom databases of my data that I need to get surfaced up in Flex and Twilio, Frontline, etc.? How does that work? What does that process look like from a technical standpoint?
Yeah. So I think, oh, hey, we've got Pete. So
We do have Pete. I'm
we got
adding him
Pete.
back in.
All right, let's see what he does.
Okay.
He probably ran down to his local gas station to pick up a headset.
I'm sure he did. And it's probably pretty purple or pink because they only had Hello Kitty at the gas stop. And
That would be
that's what he
perfect.
did.
That would be
Agreed.
perfect. Yes.
Agreed.
With his icy cup.
I am so sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I did run down to my local gas station, and fortunately they have a range of USB headsets, so it's,
But it wasn't Kitty or Puppy. I'm so sad.
I know they only had yeah, actually they did have those. I went with the Hello Kitty at night ones. So so I apologize. What was the question? I was hearing everything in double for a while.
The question was, so there was a lot of different things, right? And so the question is, if I'm a customer and I'm coming to Twilio and Terazo, and I don't want to find a CRM, which we know there's many CRMs that integrate beautifully and nicely with Twilio functions, etc. But I don't want to do that. From a Twilio standpoint and Flex standpoint, how do I integrate? What is the best way and strategy and technical implementation or integration that we would want to do that?
Well, I think that speaks to our core. Oh, by the way, I'm Pete Cornwell, VP of Solution Architecture here at Terazo, just in case you wondered. Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller. So essentially we're having, or we come across this problem a lot. So we're actually, as you know, working with a customer, and I think you're actually on site with them right now, where they do have a lot of legacy data that they want to present. They are still deciding about CRM or not. But before that, there'll be a transitional phase. So, that speaks to our core competency, I think, as an API first. So, we would, and I think, Mike, you alluded to this earlier, we would place a facade, an API, something driven by the needs of the agent from the UI perspective, the use cases that workflow they need to move through. We would place an API in front of that, and it could be one legacy base, it could be a legacy database, it could be multiple legacy databases, but that would then act as an adapter to bring that together into a single holistic experience. The beauty of that, of course, is that ultimately you can then swap that out as you move to a different data model later on, which is how we're working with the customer site you're on at the moment, Rachel. So,
I think one of the things to add to that is to, there's so much power in Flex that I don't know. I think we forget sometimes it's just a front end to a website, right?
Right.
And so all your data back there, that's great. That's awesome. We're gonna get it in there. But at the end of the day, we could treat Flex like any other website front end that we would build, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we go to our big book of design patterns. And we find one of our favorites, which is the back end for front end, the BFF, the best friend forever pattern. And I think every time I see that, like when I read blog posts, like
I do the jokes here, blame me.
But every time I read a blog post, that's what's going through my mind, like BFF, but and that pattern's super simple, right? It's really, I have one backend API that we write, right? That you write,
Yep.
that your front end talks to, and then it's doing all that hard work of adapting, like what Pete was saying. It's going to do the hard work of talking to, the 3 or 4 different databases. And the beauty of that is it puts, again, layers of abstraction. It makes it so where that front end doesn't have to change as maybe you are migrating off of those data sources, right? And so with that API there, you have buffered your Flex experience, your web front end experience, Frontline for that matter as well, because Frontline is a great product as well. So you buffered them both from the complexities of your legacy data sources.
Right. And so just to kind of add to that, and where the value comes from, if I'm going to put on my business hat, for those of you who are more business focused and not as technical, the value that this brings to you is that adoption, that change management, that you can't replace all your systems in one time. You don't have the budget to replace all the systems at one time. And you're trying to figure out, how do I get this all done? Well, the good news is based off of the way that the framework, the foundation, that platform that Twilio has, as well as in combination of API first, Terazo, and what we can do, we can integrate no matter what. And it's really simple and it's easy, not so simple and easy that it doesn't take additional work or custom work, but it does. But it's not going to take forever, and you don't have to go replace those databases right away and those systems. You can slow roll it for when budget allows, for when time allows. You're not throwing and boiling the ocean in one go. And so I think that's so very important and critical. And I appreciate you both explaining that. So I think if you can, data is in all different forms, right? So it's not just data, right? That comes from the data that comes from databases and so along. We also have data that comes out of Flex, right? So let's say call notes, we have call recordings, metadata around call recordings, other things that come as a result. Where does that go? What is the right approach for storing? Do you guys have any thoughts around that?
Wow, that's a loaded question right there. Again, I think the approach that we talked about with respect to, wrap up and, with respect to the agent experience, recording what's going on, the persistent solutions are as many as there are stars in the sky. So, generally, we could be writing at various phases of the call. We could be capturing events. I think Mike was alluding to insights earlier. We might store that in a classic persistence database. From the Flex perspective, we'd be building a controlled UI. By that, I mean, so, the data is structured, it can be categorized, it can be built out into a typology or ontology, so you don't get a lot of free-form text fields, which you find in many legacy systems. But how we actually go ahead and store that, well, again, we would use that facade approach. Again, it could go to multiple sources. And in actual fact, we're seeing, well, I wouldn't say the modern enterprise, but I will. We're seeing that, behind this may not be a distinct persistent source. It may be multiple endpoints because, there may be audit trails, logging, real-time dashboards that are driven from this. Yes, databases, and other sources of truth and or applications that feed off it, including learning models as well. So we're seeing, we're seeing that approach pop up where, call data is coming in and these models are being trained on the fly to give out, operational and strategic insights from whatever algorithm they're built on. And that's getting easier and easier to both identify, use, and integrate. So we're seeing that come into our Flex work, I think, a little more commonly than we would have, say, 2 or 3 years ago.
Excellent. Yep, absolutely. And Mike, just to kind of add on to that, I know in one of our projects recently, we've had the pleasure and the opportunity to get to integrate with third parties around giving metadata, giving information over so that that can be consumed and used from an analytics and reporting perspective, but also being able to look at calls slightly differently and to slice that information. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like the other nice thing, or two nice things. There's so many nice things here, but very
You
nice
know, when you
things.
said the
Things
word
that are
thing,
nice.
and then we had Bussy talk about salmon, I thought that's it. My career's done. All the metaphors have been used up. Please go on.
We're just gonna keep calling them nice things. That's what we're
Yeah,
doing.
the things. Yeah, that'll do.
It's a technical term. You didn't know?
It is. Thing is nice.
I heard that.
I don't know if that made
Twice.
sense what I just said, but anyway, moving on to the question at hand here. So, you know, one of the capabilities that Flex brings to the table is one, we've already talked about it, the ability to pull that data after the fact, right? And so you have all the APIs from Twilio there. You can pull that data. You've got Flex reporting or the Flex Insights reporting that you could pull that raw data out of. The other component, though, is the real-time events that are happening underneath the hood. Because at its core, communication is usually asynchronous, right? You don't really know when someone is going to text you back. You don't really know, don't necessarily know when a call might end or get dropped, right? And so you have these asynchronous complexities that happen in the system. And one of the core capabilities that Twilio brings to the table is to build an event-based architecture against Twilio. Twilio gives you the visibility into what's going on under the hood. They tell you things like a call has started. They tell you things like when a participant is joining that call. They tell you when that call was dropped. They tell you when someone joins a conversation's been ended. A message has hit that conversation. All of this information is given to you in an event system. And the reason that is so helpful when you're talking about integrating with third-party services is now you can inform those third-party services in near real time as to when things are changing inside of Flex, making it a much, much nicer integration. Not necessarily more closely coupled because it's events, right? But it is a much closer integration.
And so the metaphor there, since we are on a food trick today that you started, is you go out and you buy a Stouffer's lasagna, and for most of you who know that, but you know that it doesn't really have enough cheese on it. It's not quite there, but that framework is there. Most of the guts are there. You add a little more, sprinkle some more cheese on it to make it even better, to get it closer to where you need. So the important part is that framework's already there. That event framework is there. A lot of the things that a lot of organizations want to have is already built in this platform. You just have to add a little bit of cheese on top to make it even closer to what you need to fit your business model. And I think that's, from a technical standpoint, when you're thinking about technology, you definitely want to think about that Stouffer's lasagna and sprinkling some cheese on it, is what I would say.
Hey, look, I'm a fan of cheese. I love cheese. It is well known in this household that cheese is very important to me. So any analogy that uses adding cheese as its chief component, I'm in.
And any cheese haters out there, we still love you.
We do. But then you just give vegan cheese, so then it's fine, right?
Understood.
But okay. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I think that the responsiveness there, and especially the real-time insight into data as it flows through in terms of events, is that I think that that's been very critical as well. It's enabled us to take on and really address, for example, those near-time, real-time reporting requirements, but also, and again, I'm alluding to where you are, Rachel, more safety critical instances as well in the health informatics space, where understanding what's going on, not just from dealing with the emergency itself, but what the system is doing and how it's responding is a fundamental consideration. So the availability of that metadata has been, I think, fundamental in some critical use cases, and will continue to be more so. So, the stack has really kind of made a leap forward from, the 60-minute latency to 15-minute latency now to, well, matters of microseconds. So it's really opened that up.
I think. Oh yeah, Rich, you had a question? Oh, okay. Well,
I do, but you continue.
I think it gives you also extra points to hook in, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just a send that event to one other external system, but that can be broadcasted out for the rest of the platform. And we've done some fairly creative things around that capability of just being able to hook in at a particular point, right? Even to the extent to where we've been, we think about sometimes working around legacy limitations because maybe we get some insight into Twilio when something happens, but a legacy system doesn't tell us. And so, you could get rather creative with how you use these events to your advantage within that Twilio ecosystem. I think the other piece is auditing, right? Like having that trail. Is that where you were going to go, Rachel?
I was going there. Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going there.
So, let's go there. Let's go there now.
You want to go there? We're going to go there.
The audit trail, and when you're tacking on that, I want to look at the whole ecosystem of Twilio, because we have Segment, we have Frontline, we have Flex, and I don't know, there's probably other things that I'm probably missing that you guys can tell me about. So now that you have this event structure and you have data layer into it, and you're going to go into the audit trail, how does all that work together?
Oh, you need a central. I mean, the bottom line is that's where we would provide the value add from it. So, Flex, Frontline, Segment, they're all data sources or sinks. What we need to do, as a professional services provider and gold partner for Twilio, is either build on or instrument that event streaming system that would enable that asynchronous behavior to be realized. And it's actually, not as complex as it sounds. It does require some governance, but these products have been around in various forms for quite some time. Back to the, I'm just trying to think of what the IBM product used to be, WebSphere something, MQ series, thank you. But, the whole idea of decoupling things through what's called a publish subscribe or classic observer pattern, we find now that high speed and the guarantee of delivery as well between the various products in the Flex ecosystem is essential. You don't want to lose things in transit, or you don't even want them duplicated. We have many clients who need an event streaming mechanism that will make sure that, unless the internet itself collapses, it is going to get there. So that would be, where a lot of our data engineering work would fall. And it does provide that, classic linkage between all of these sinks and sources that Twilio offers, and really forms the core of our data engineering work, I think. So,
I think the product that I'm interested in looking at and keeping an eye on, I've been keeping an eye on for a while at Twilio, is their event streams product, right? It's in public beta now, but the event streams is that it takes a bunch of other Twilio services, and it gives you a single point within Twilio to connect into to get those events. So you don't have to go into each one of those, other services. Yeah, within Twilio, you have a single point, and it comes with the ability to have configurations with things like a webhook. You can deliver to a webhook. You can deliver them to things like Kinesis within AWS, which is a it's a Kafka type service within AWS. And then also it has direct integration with Segment. So, with little infrastructure configuration on your end, with event streams, you can begin piping that data out to things like Segment, Kinesis for the rest of your platform, and then a webhook, which that's just an endpoint on the internet that you own and you're running, that allows you to consume that, and then you can push that to wherever you want. So, I'm really excited to see event streams as a product grow at Twilio, and anxious for it to come out of public beta. Love for it.
Yeah,
to go
it really has been
GA.
an amazing need, because we've been I think Insights is glorious. It really does help us, but there is a 15-minute latency there, which is often operationally fine for many use cases. But as we mentioned earlier, sometimes you need to know right now. You may be running a contact center in a dynamic scenario. I mean, running a highway, for example, those are that would be a common scenario where you need to know what's going on. And that model that enables us to consume those events, if we're interested in them, we don't have to necessarily consume everything, but that capability is, I'm going to tell you what's going on. Basically, you can have a receiver at the other end that can say, okay, well, I'm interested in this kind of event, and then they can send it to, interested parties. So, for example, going back to my road analogy, perhaps, that event may go out to somebody with a, frontline implementation. With a real-time dashboard, I can find out or perhaps diagnose issues that are going on with my infrastructure. So, all of these, I think, they're really speaking to that near real-time need that we are now hearing from our Flex frontline and other Twilio associated customers. So I agree with Mike.
So I think that's a good breaking point, if we can, for this subject. We do have Miles up next. So if everyone can just say thank you to Pete for jumping in, giving us this data view. I know I have to kick you out, Pete. I'm so sorry.
I know, it was my 15 minutes
one
of
day,
fame.
Pete.
15 minutes of fame. Yeah, I got kicked out twice.
It was, but we are so gracious that you were able to join us to give us this color and this information. Let's hop in and we'll talk a little bit with Miles. He's awesome and amazing, but we appreciate you, Pete, and sorry, buddy, but I'm kicking you out now.
Oh, no
Thanks,
problem.
Pete.
Please boot me now. See ya.
Hey, look, I want to remind everyone who's watching here, like, if you've got questions, please post those up here for us to talk. And if you do want to join us in the booth here, or whatever this thing is called, the live video QA, get in line. The line's not long, so just hop in. We'll boot Miles in a heartbeat, and then we'll let you right on in.
Exactly. As much as we enjoy having all the Terazoans, we would love to hear from you guys and to hear what your questions are. Welcome, Miles. We appreciate you being here. So with that being said, why don't you do a quick introduction of yourself, and just to kind of set the expectation, maybe spend a few minutes talking a little bit about Frontline.
Okay, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Miles Phillips. Here at Terazo, I serve as our Senior Director for the Twilio Partnership, which means I generally own the partnership from a day-to-day perspective, and when we start to think about strategy and how we go to market with Twilio. I've been with the company for about 5 years. I've been a part of the partnership since day one, since our first deal we did with Twilio as an unofficial partner. Part of what makes me unique as we come into these conversations is I come in as someone who has implemented Twilio as an engineer. I've sold Twilio as a salesperson and a sales engineer. And now I sit in the partnership space. So I have a neat 360 view across the whole process. I know today, we've been spending a lot of time talking about Flex and Segment, and now we're going to switch and talk a little bit more about another tool in the Twilio toolbox called Frontline. And what Twilio Frontline is Frontline is Twilio's attempt to go break out from outside the contact center. We're having these many-to-many interactions, and leave the contact center and come down to your your staff is out in the field. So think about your sales personnel out in the field. Think about your service technicians out in the field. And what Frontline is a platform that lets your agents have direct one-on-one communication via text messaging or any of the messaging channels and voice channels from their mobile device first or from a web interface. And why this is important is if you think you're a small business owner or even an enterprise business owner, you have all these people out in the field. They're having all these conversations. And what are they doing today? Today, they're using their personal mobile device. And when someone's using their personal mobile device, that means a few things. There has some ramifications. Ramification number one is it's using their own personal cell phone number, not a company phone number. Ramification number two, as a business leader, you have zero insight into what's going on in these conversations. So, you have some scenarios that can happen when have your employees using these mobile personal devices. Think someone leaves the company. Now all these sales leads, everyone who has just that salesperson's phone number to contact them, they're still calling them. They're not calling you as a company. And, let's think about something not as pleasant. Let's say maybe you have an employee who is doing something improper. Maybe they're having conversations they shouldn't have. When these conversations happen on the personal mobile device, unless the customer reaches out to you as a business leader, you have no idea any of this is happening. So Twilio Frontline, where, like I said, Twilio provides a mobile application interface that you can use virtually from day one once you connect your systems to it. So Twilio Frontline provides this mobile application that's ready to go, and they provide a series of endpoints or webhooks for you to set it up so you can integrate it in with any system you want. So maybe you want to connect it into your Salesforce. Maybe it's your ServiceNow. But Twilio leaves that open so that just like Flex, you can integrate in any CRM you want. Frontline keeps that same integration pattern where you can bring in your data from any source to manage these conversations.
Oh, I think we lost Rachel this time. So
yeah.
So I think one of the things that stuck out to me yesterday about Frontline on the keynote with that we saw was it was positioned as for sales teams. And I think about that a little bit. And I think the reason that was brought up in comparison to contact centers is that the frontline use cases generally are focused on existing customer relationships. Is that a accurate way, or should I be thinking about it differently?
No, I think what you're thinking about is exactly right, because what Twilio Frontline does is it provides you a list of contacts or customers that you're associated with, that you're working with and maintains those conversations with. Where Flex is a system that can take any inbound conversation, anything going on, and just route it to any agent. Frontline is really set up for that one-on-one experience where, think like in the retail industry, what we call like the clienteling. So think I am a shop and I have customers regularly come in. Maybe I'm going to text my top 10 favorite customers, hey, I've got this new thing on sale I think you'll really like. Versus, someone going on Google, looking at Google Maps, finding a location, clicking a button and texting. That text message is designed to go into the contact center, where you have those mini relationships going on. You have all those agents ready to take the broader calls from all the different sources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can definitely see how having that mobile phone, I mean, if I'm texting someone off my mobile phone, it's definitely a lot more of a personal interaction than if I'm just sitting at my work desk answering a call on Flex, right?
Yeah,
they have
exactly.
access, they have more access to my time, I think is what, and to me, right? It's like it's with me. And so unless it's that work phone, over at when you're at the shop, right? I think one of the things that I really like about Frontline is that it's a mobile application, right? And there are so many, there's so much scope that goes into building a mobile app that just getting it off the ground can sometimes be cost prohibitive.
Yeah, and a lot of times, what you find with building mobile application is most of your developers are not mobile application developers. And when you start development versus say API development, it's a totally different world, because if you think you have other layers of complexity, you have to deal with app stores and making sure you follow all the different guidelines. Apple especially has been known for having very strict guidelines for what these applications look like. Beyond the fact we're just getting into the app store, then you have these application code base now have to run on hundreds of different devices, different screen sizes, tablets, phones. And if you don't have that development experience, which most of us developers don't, or most of us developers struggle through, that is a really hard process. So with Frontline, they've taken that lift away from you, and then your developers just get to do things like integrations to webhooks. Like you have webhook to pull in your list of contacts, pull in your customer details. What are the templates we want to send? And now we let developers do the things they're good at versus the things they're maybe not doing every day. And I think that's really important.
Well, and I think building on top of that, it's just speed to market with something like this, right? Because even if you had the staff to build a mobile app, oftentimes it could take a long time, because Frontline is not just messaging, right? Frontline does voice as well, right, Miles?
Yes, correct. It does.
And
Yeah,
I'm
so like,
I was going to say, sorry that I dropped out. Did you guys talk about how it can connect with Flex, right? The whole
I think that's going to be next.
Yep. Okay, let's roll with it. All right.
Cool. Yeah. So now you've got, it's not just a messaging app. It's an app that can do real time, like take phone calls, right? So now your customers, or now your workers can take calls from customers right out of your corporate IVR, right? And it's not going to a personal phone number, right? Because I think one of the other important aspects to this is it's not only the compliance side of it, getting the visibility into the messages, right, Miles? But it's also, now I don't have to give out my personal cell phone number, right? So there's a personal privacy element component of this to the worker side. And then on the employer side, or the organization side, they own the phone numbers.
You've got business continuity here.
Exactly. So all that marketing material where you put those phone numbers on them, they don't change when people rotate in and out.
Right. And it's one system, right? You're getting all that information. It's proprietary. They get to retain it. Compliance, legal. You don't have to worry about any of that type of stuff by having the solution in place. In addition to the fact that you don't have to now develop a mobile application, right? And then if you happen to be a customer who has Flex as well, how does that work, guys? Talk to me about that.
Mike, you want to go for that? Or do you want me to take this time?
Yeah,
I don't care.
I mean, either one. And we both have some experience in this world. So 5 minutes. Here we go. The rundown. So one of the surprises is Flex and Frontline don't play in the same Twilio account. So we have done implementations where Flex and Frontline can interact with each other. And it can look like things of being able to move calls from Flex, sometimes Frontline into Flex, but normally it's Flex into Frontline. And doing that type of implementation generally involves a bit more custom development work, for the sole reason of you're building out a layer, a platform of your own that's able to facilitate the transfer of conversations back and forth between a Flex agent and a Frontline worker. and in considering things around conversation history, who the worker's going to get, you know, being able to bring those in, you know, that can be, depending on your routing too, because sometimes someone's going to come in. Sometimes you need to make a decision as to whether they go to straight to frontline, or do I send that to someone in Flex, right? So they can definitely work together, but it also requires, I would say, a bit more level up of integration that you normally would need to do for frontline. What are your thoughts, Miles?
I think that's right. And I think I want to close this out with, I want to talk about, you know, a situation where we've done this where, you know, our customers may consider doing things like this. So, you know, you might be asking, well, why do you want to put these two pieces together? Well, one example where we've done this is think like a franchise model where, or any service-based business where we have a corporate contact center where people call in by default to general information inquiries. I'm a new customer, I want to sign up for service. But then you also have all the way down to the other side of maybe I'm a field technician coming out to mow somebody's lawn. And you need to be able to text the customer, say, Mr. Customer, I'm going to be arriving in 15 minutes. Do you have any pets? Is there anything I need to be aware of? And that's a one-on-one conversation versus where, hey, I want you to take care of my lawn. You know, that is, you know, something you do up at the corporate contact center, maybe like a large sales contact center. So you think about this as, you know, what are those interactions they typically handle like at their contact center, the one-off request versus what am I going to talk to my deployed people in the field? So, you know, think your salespeople out in the field and whatnot. And there's definitely these cases or uses where you have both and you need them both to work together.
Awesome. Lots of good value that's there. And I think it's really important, and not just from an IT specialist or field engineer or somebody that's going out to mow the lawn, but just the case worker, a social worker, anybody who's going out and doing field service level work and has to report back to a larger organization. There's a lot of different nuances and things that you can do to integrate and pull together. So we're really just about time. Just want to say thank you to everyone that joined today. Hopefully we got a bit more into those technical weeds. It's only an hour, so we can only get but so much. And if you're very much interested in us, please reach out to Terazo. We would be happy to go into more technical details with you. We appreciate Miles, our special guest star, also joining us and wrapping this up. And then of course, Mike B as being my lovely co-host for today. But anyway, we really appreciate everyone and thank you very much and have an awesome day.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.